Mercer tells his story. Welcome back to Writer's Theory. I'm James Winterthorn, and this is my journey of writing a novel in 90 days. Today is day 27. Yesterday, we left off, we heard the story of the coyote and the rock in the road, and Mercer started telling his story. So the technique I'm using here is characters telling their own stories. And we can go back to chapter 2, I believe, where Mercer gave a little bit of background about his relationship with the antagonist. And that particular story, while it's the same device, it's the same function, I think really served me to know the background of the character a little bit way at the beginning, where this story is more of a deep dive into Mercer's character and just what he's been through. So we're going to hear him tell his story, and well, let's get into the first part of day 27. So he's already begun telling his story here. So when I leave off in sections like this, picking it up is much easier. And when you're telling a story in a character's voice, at least for me, like it's tends to write pretty easily and quickly. I have this device built in that I'm kind of stuck with now, where anything that's spoken to the Native Americans here needs to be translated. And so I have a translator, but I often have to include that somehow into the prose here. So I hope I did that well as the story goes on and in this scene as well. So I don't want to get too much into parts of the story that I've already told being retold. Sometimes that's a necessary thing. But if I have to recap something that's already happened in the story, I try to keep it brief. But this is a little bit of rehashing what happened in the last chapter. He's just telling his story about it. So just a couple paragraphs here to get that across and what it means to him. Now this is a scene that I have to add in back in chapter 3. This is a scene that's missing that I referenced before when I didn't have the time between Charles sharing his dream of raising these rabbits and then finding out the rabbits would be there. I told you there was a scene that was missing from that chapter. So what Mercer's discussing here will be that sequence. Would be like Mercer's religious experience that helps him deal with the challenges that he has as a result of the war. Yeah, this is going very smoothly. I think it's a result of me liking this technique a lot, and I like characters when they tell stories, and so this is easy writing for me. And as we've seen from in other chapters, other instances of doing this, I like this technique a lot of characters telling stories. You should know this by now, and so that comes easily to me. In this type of exercise where I am writing a novel and I don't really know the story that I'm writing except for when it's presented right in front of me, or I don't have background, I don't really have a meaningful outline that I created, so it's not really in my head completely. These techniques are great for understanding the character. And not only where the character's been, but where he's going to go and how I can color all of his experiences now with the stories that he's told. So let's finish up the rest of day 27 and hear the rest of his story. I didn't want this to be a religious story. I don't want that to be the theme of it, but I did want it to be a real thing. I did want there to be a realistic motivation for him to. Sorry, I'm seeing errors as I write, and they're bothering me that I didn't correct them or I didn't get the punctuation right. Sorry. I didn't want religion to be the theme, but I did want it to be a presence, and it's something that I think we can all understand, even if we're not believers ourselves. But we know where he's coming from and why he might feel this way. And here, this is his story and how he relates to these teachings, versus just coming in and trying to witness the Gospels or whatever story he wants to tell. But instead, he's telling his story and how it relates, how this religious story relates to him. And I like that a lot. And so they know that this was a meaningful thing for him, and that he's a little emotionally fatigued by telling that story. And I wanted the people to also have an experience and understand where he was coming from as well. So that was the story there. Yeah, that was. I like that a lot. It was emotionally impactful. It was still had the religious elements that I wanted to add without it being preachy. So this turned out really well, and I'm pleased with the story that he told here. Yeah, so with that, let me share today's line of the day. It's hard to know that the way you lived and the things that you've done didn't amount to anything except for the suffering of others. So this is, again, Mercer's reflection on his actions, namely during the war. This was a theme earlier where Charles is trying to account for some kind of meaning, some kind of purpose from all the fighting, and really just couldn't find anything. And this is that same thing where it's like he did all of these things and it didn't achieve anything except for hurting people, and he's dealing with those feelings now while he tells his story. So this was an emotionally impactful scene here, and I hope that comes across in the writing. So let me know in the comments what you thought of this. If I achieved if it was emotional, if it was believable in that regard too. It's not over the top, but I'm pleased with this effort. I like what I've done here. And so moving on to tomorrow, we will see Mercer start to move out. Like he'll basically wrap things up with the tribe and get ready to move on. So that's what we have to look forward to tomorrow. So if you're enjoying watching me write this story, please like and subscribe, and click the bell if you want to be notified. And we will get back to it starting tomorrow.